Because I'm not here, I wanted to record the notes for you so that you can watch them on your Chromebook and follow along in your spiral. Make sure you keep up, and at any point, if you get behind, you can pause the video so that you can get caught up. Also, there will be some times during the video where I will tell you to pause it so that you can practice the problem by yourself before we do it together. Okay, so yesterday we left off with integers with a number line. Today we're going to look at rational numbers with a song. This is going to be pages 56 and 57. Go ahead and pause the video so you can write this on your table of contents, but also write this title at the top of 56 and 57. Okay, so you should have your title at the top. We are starting on page 56. So before we get into some examples, I'm going to give you some steps. When we eventually, not yet, but we're going to glue this down, we should have at least 2 lines up here. So I want to add some steps. Okay, so the first step, and I will explain to you what these mean in a minute, but I want you to just write them down. Check for 2 signs in between the numbers. So if you need to pause the video, go ahead so that you can write that down. You might hear them practicing cheer next door. Okay, step 2. Follow the rules in the song. Okay, so pause the video, write this down, and once you're ready, replay it. So when I say check for 2 signs, when I say signs, I mean a plus sign and a negative sign, or also negative signs are known as minus signs. So when I am saying signs, that's what I'm talking about. I will give you an example of that. Let's go ahead and glue this paper on page 56 right below those steps. Okay, so after you check for 2 signs in between numbers, you will follow the rules in the song. So the song goes to the tune, row, row, row your boat. We all know the song. We're not going to be singing those words. I changed the words to help us solve adding and subtracting problems. So this song has 2 parts that you need to pay attention to. The first part is if the numbers have the same sign. So that means if they're both positive or both negative. The second part is if the numbers have different signs. That means one of them has to be positive and one has to be negative. I'm going to kind of sing the song real quick just so you have an idea of what it sounds like. So it goes to row, row, row your boat. So it goes same signs add and keep, different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number, then you'll be exact. The song is to help you remember the words because the words help you with the problems. I'm going to talk about each part. So when they are the same sign, which means both numbers are negative or both numbers are positive, you add the numbers and you keep. When it says keep, I am talking about the sign. So if they're both positive, you keep the positive sign. If they're both negative, you keep the negative sign. If they are different, which means one is negative and one is positive. You subtract the two numbers, and then you keep the sign of the larger number. So whichever one's larger, you keep that sign. Okay, so we're going to do a couple examples. We're going to use these two steps I gave you. So down here at the bottom, we're going to start here. Write this problem down. -4 plus -8. So the first step said to check for two signs in between the numbers. So here's my two numbers, and it said check for two signs in between them. So in between them, I do see a plus sign and a negative sign. There are two signs. You cannot have that happen if you're going to use this song. If you're going to use this song, you can only have one sign. So we are going to change this plus and negative sign to one sign. The negative sign is going to overrule the positive, and it's just going to become a minus. So anytime you have a plus and a negative, it becomes negative. The negative outrules the positive. Now that I did step 1, I can do step 2. So step 2 says follow the rules in the song. So either they are the same or they are different. So look in front of the 4. In front of the 4 is a negative sign, so this is a -4. Now look in front of the 8. There is a subtraction sign. The subtraction sign means that this 8 is negative. So since the 4 is negative and the 8 is negative, they have the same sign. Same signs add. So I'm going to add 8 plus 4 is 12. I'm almost done. It says add and keep the sign. So I added, and I'm going to keep the sign. The sign's negative, I'm going to keep it. My answer is -12. Okay, let's do another one. I'm going to do 2 examples on this side, so start with this first one. Okay, step 1, check for 2 signs in between the numbers. So I have a 12 and a 4. In between them, I only have one sign, it's the plus sign. So I am done with step 1. Step 2 is to follow the song. So either they have the same signs or they have different signs. In front of the 12 is a negative sign. In front of the 4 is the plus sign. That means the 4 is positive. They are different. This one's negative, this one's positive. It says different signs subtract. 12 minus 4 is 8. And we're almost done, so different signs subtract. Now, keep the sign of the larger number. So even though -12 is technically smaller than +4, that's not what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the signs. I am only looking at the numbers. Is 12 or 4 bigger? 12 is bigger, it's negative. So I'm going to keep that sign. So it said keep the sign of the larger number. Since 12 is larger, I keep the negative. We're going to do another one. Pause the video if I'm going too fast, if you need to get caught up on your notes. The reason why I am putting parentheses around this 5 is because I want to separate these two signs. I want to show separation of the plus sign and the negative sign. So that's why I'm using the parentheses. Okay, step 1, check for 2 signs in between the numbers. In between the 10 and the 5, I have 2 signs. I have a plus sign and a negative sign. You can't have 2 signs. So remember, the negative outweighs the positive. They become a minus sign. Okay? Okay, now even though we can just do 10 minus 5, I want to show you how this works with the song. You have to decide, are they the same or are they different? Look in front of the 10. There's nothing there. That means it's positive. Look in front of the 5. There's a minus sign. Minus means it's negative. This one's positive. This one's negative. They are different, so I subtract. 10 minus 5 is 5. Different signs subtract. Keep the sign of the larger number. 10 is bigger than 5, so I'm going to keep that sign, which is positive. Now, you did not need the song for this. 10 minus 5 is 5. That's not something we need the song for, but it still works. So yesterday, I showed you how to solve these type of problems on a number line. That is one way you can do that. If the numbers are small, you can use that number line that's at the top of your star chart. Whenever you're dealing with fractions and decimals, though, the number line's not realistic because it's hard to move along a number line with decimals and fractions. So if I give you a adding or subtracting problem with fractions and decimals, you're going to use the song. We're going to do some more examples on page 57. So turn your spiral over. I want to find the halfway point on my spiral, so I'm going to take it, this page, and I'm going to fold it in half, just like we did on Monday. Draw the line going down. And then we are going to do a problem right here. Number 1. Now I want us to, whenever we are writing the problem, I want us to use a pen so the problem stands out. You may use your red grading pen that you picked up when you walked in, or you can choose any of the ones that you have. Okay, I'm going to go back to pencil. Step 1, check for 2 signs in between the numbers. So I have 3.6 and 6.2. Do I have 1 sign in between, or do I have 2? I have 2. I have a minus sign and a negative sign. I cannot have 2. I have to change it to 1. 2 negatives make a positive. So this minus a negative becomes a plus sign. You just have to remember that. 2 negatives make a positive. A positive and negative is negative. We did that on the other page. Okay, now we can use the song. So the song says they are either the same sign or they are different. Looking in front of the 3.6 is a negative sign. Looking in front of the 6.2 is a plus sign. That makes that positive. So are they the same or are they different? They're different. So the song says different signs subtract. So let's go ahead and set this up. When you are subtracting, and I want to point this out, even though there's a plus sign, we are subtracting because the song says if they are different, which they are, you are going to subtract. When you are subtracting, you want to make sure to line those decimals up. We talked about that on Monday. So since 6.2 is my larger number, I am going to write that first. Then I'm going to line my decimals up and write 3.6 below it. Remember, based off the song, we are subtracting. Bring your decimal down. I cannot do 2 minus 6, so I make that a 12 and make that a 5. 12 minus 6 is 6, and 5 minus 3 is 2. So my answer is 2.6, but we are not done. We have to finish reading the song. The song says, first, different signs subtract. We did that part. Now we have to read the second part. Keep the sign of the larger number. 6 is larger than 3, so we are going to keep the positive sign. So my answer is a positive 2.6. Okay, so on this next problem, we're going to pick up our pen again, and we're going to write this problem down. I want you to solve this one on your own, which means you need to pause the video and you need to solve this problem on your own. After you attempt to solve it, then you can replay the video to see if you got it right. The best way to get good at this is to practice it yourself. So pause the video. Okay, so the first step is to check if there are two signs in between the numbers. In between the 4.3 and the 6.1, I have a plus sign and a negative sign. So there are two signs. What does that become? The negative outrules the positive, it becomes a minus sign. So this is 6.1, and this is negative 4.3. Okay, now I can use the song. So first I have to decide, do these have the same sign or are they different? Look in front of the 4.3, there's a negative sign, so that's a negative 4.3. Look in front of the 6.1, it's a subtraction sign. That means it's negative. So this is negative and this is negative. They are the same. So you're just going to add and keep that negative, keep that sign. Even if I'm adding, so I'm going to point out it says subtraction, but we're technically adding. You have to follow the rules on this song. Even when I'm adding, I tend to put the larger number on the top. It's just a good rule of thumb to follow. Line up those decimals. Okay, 3 plus 1 is 4, 6 plus 4 is 10. My answer is 10.4, but we're not done. I have to finish reading the song. So we did the same signs and add. Now we have to keep the sign. They're both negative, so I'm going to keep the negative. Okay, so I'm going to go down here, and we're going to do number 3. I'm going to switch to my pen and write this problem down. Negative 9 and 5/6 plus 3 and 1/2. Switch back to my pencil. I'm going to do this one with you and you will do the next one on your own. Okay, step 1, check for two signs in between the numbers. So I have this number and this number. In between, I only have one sign, so I don't have to change it to 1. It's already one sign. So now I can follow the song. So I have to decide, are these numbers the same sign or are they different? I'm going to look in front of the 9, there's a negative sign. Look in front of the 3, it's a plus sign. They're different. This one's negative, this one's positive. The song says, different signs subtract. So I'm going to set this problem up and I'm going to make sure to subtract. We learned on Friday when you're dealing with fractions that I would like you to set the problem up like this. We always put the larger number on top and we are subtracting. So we learned on Monday, these have to have a common denominator. 2 and 6 are not the same. So I'm going to come over here, rewrite my whole numbers, but the fractions are going to change. So I'm just going to leave it open for now. If you know what the common denominator is with 6 and 2 in your head, that's great. If you don't, I'm going to show you how to do that. So you're going to take your two denominators, and we did this on Monday, but this is just a review. Okay, so starting with 6, and then 2. The smallest one they have in common is 6. That's my new denominator. Okay, now I got to figure out my numerators. So 6 times what is 6? 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times what is 6? 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. Okay, now I can subtract. 9 minus 3 is 6. The denominator stays the same. I'm just going to leave that. 5 minus 3 is 2. Okay, now I can simplify. 2 goes into 2 and 6. It goes into 2 one time. It goes into 6 3 times. So my whole number is 6. I'm writing my final answer. My whole number is 6, and the fraction is 1/3. Sorry, I know you can hear them cheering next door. Okay, we're almost done. So now we have to decide, is this a negative or positive answer? So we were subtracting. We did this one. Keep the sign of the larger number. So I have to decide, is 9 larger or is 3 larger? 9 is larger, so I'm going to keep the sign, which is negative. So my answer is a negative 6 1/3. Okay, I'm going to have you do this next problem on your own. So after you write it down, you're going to pause the video and you are going to try to do the problem yourself. And then after you finish it, you can play the video so that you can see if you got it right. And if you got it wrong, I want you to find your mistake. Actually, I'm going to change that. I want to do 4 2/3 plus negative 2 1/4. So pause it, try it, and then play it again. Okay, step 1, I gotta check to see if there's 2 signs in between the number. So in between these, I have a plus sign and a minus sign, which is a negative. So there are 2 signs. I have to turn it to 1 sign. The negative outrules the positive, it just becomes a minus sign. Rewrite the problem. I no longer write this negative sign in front of here. It became this minus sign. Okay, so now I can decide, do these have the same sign or are they different? I'm going to look in front of the 4, there's nothing there. That means it's positive. Look in front of the 2 is a minus sign. That means it's negative. So these are different. This one's positive, this one's negative. If they are different, you are to subtract. So I'm going to set the problem up. Always put the larger number on first, even if it's written second. And we are subtracting because they have different signs. Okay, they do not have a common denominator, so I'm going to come over here. Make sure you're doing this in pencil. Okay, so if you already know what the common denominator is, great, but if not, I'm going to list them out below. So there's 3, 6, 9, 12, 4, 8, 12, 16. The smallest one they have in common is 12. That is my new denominator. Now I multiply. 3 times what is 12? 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times what is 12? 1 times 3 is 3. Now I can subtract. 4 minus 2. 8 minus 3. Denominator stays the same. Can I simplify these? No, because there's nothing that goes into 5 and 12 evenly. So going up here to my answer, I'm just going to write it right here. 2 5/12. But I'm not done. I have to decide, is my answer negative or positive? So I was subtracting. It says, keep the sign of the larger number. So is 4 larger or 2? 4 is larger and it's positive. That means my final answer is positive. Okay, we're going to do one more problem. I'm actually going to have you erase this line because this next problem is going to take up more room. You do not have to pause the video and try this one yourself because there is an extra step in this problem. So this is number 5. Now we're going to do the problem that I started to write up here. There just wasn't enough room for here, so I'm going to do this one down here. Negative 8 1/2 minus negative 2 2/3. Okay, first check to see if there's 2 signs in between the numbers, which there is. I see a minus sign and a negative sign. 2 negatives become a positive. Now I'm just going to write the numbers. Okay, now I can use the song. I have to decide, are they the same signs or different? Looking in front of the 8, it's negative. Looking in front of the 2, it's positive because of the plus sign. So they're different. If they are different, we are to subtract. So I'm going to set the problem up. 8 1/2, always write the larger number first. 2 2/3. And I am subtracting. Okay, so we have to have a common denominator. So I'm going to draw an arrow and rewrite the problem. I'm going to find my common denominator below. Okay, so I have 2 and 3. I use the 2 denominators. So 2, 4, 6, 3, 6, 9. The smallest one they have in common is 6. Now we're going to multiply. 2 times 3 is 6, so 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6, so 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, so we are subtracting, but I'm going to show you a problem that you could come across. You're able to do 8 minus 2 and get 6. You're able to leave the denominator the same. But the problem is you cannot take 3 and subtract 4. So you have an extra step. You're going to have to make both of these fractions improper. I think in 6th grade some teachers may have called it popcorn, but basically you start at the bottom, you multiply it by the whole number, and then you add it to the top number. So first you multiply and then you add. The reason why we're making this improper is because I cannot do 3 minus 4. I don't have enough. 3 is too small. Ready? So 6 times 8 is 48. 48 plus 3 is 51. So this becomes 51 as the top number. The denominator stays the same. I found the common denominator of 6. It's not going to change. Okay, now let's do this one. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 plus 4 is 16. The denominator stays the same. Now I can subtract. Your denominator is going to stay the same. 51 minus 16 is 35. Okay, so now we were able to subtract. But the problem that you have now is this is improper. I need to turn it back to a mixed number. The way you do that is you divide. So I'm going to do that over here. Remember, when we divide, the top number always goes inside the house. So 35 goes inside the house, the decimal's at the end, 6 goes outside. When you are dividing, because you are trying to turn a improper fraction into a mixed number, you do not add zeros and create a decimal. You're going to use that remainder to make a fraction. 6 cannot go into 3, but it can go into 35 5 times. That is your new whole number. So right here, my new whole number is 5. 6 times 5 is 30. I'm going to subtract and get 5 left over. This is my remainder. The remainder is now your new numerator. The denominator stays the same. I still need to check if I can simplify this, and I cannot. So my answer is 5 and 5 6. I'm going to go write it up here. I am almost done. You still have to decide if this answer is negative or positive. So I was subtracting. So I was on this step. It says keep the sign of the larger number. I have to ask myself, is 8 larger or 2? 8 is larger, so I'm going to keep the negative. So this is my final answer. So on your homework tonight, you have 2 problems that is like this, numbers 2 and 3. So I'm going to show you the homework assignment really quick. Two and 3 is like number 5 in your notes. So that means you're going to get to this point and you're not going to be able to subtract, and you're going to have to turn it improper. But I did an example with you, so now that you can do that on your own. I want you to work on your homework for a little bit until your substitute tells you that it's time to do computer rotations. When it's time to do computer rotations, you will go to Google Classroom and you will open up the link and you will do that station and make sure you show your work on your rotations page.